Good morning. I want to talk today a bit about, how our practice actually leads to happier states of mind, to contentment, to peace. How does that happen? And I'm going to do that through talking about the three lakshanas again. That may be more than one talk, but we'll see. So that might be a surprise because the three lakshanas, as we know, are unsatisfactoriness or even suffering, impermanence, and no fixed self or insubstantiality. So, unless we really understand how the whole phenomenal world is marked by those three things, the three lakshanas, the three characteristics of everything phenomenal, if we don't really penetrate into the meaning of those, then we won't actually achieve what we want to achieve, those states of mind that are peaceful, that are happier, that are content. So I want to kind of link how that happens because I don't think it's particularly obvious. So in Buddhism, we talk about going for refuge. That is the mark of a Buddhist. The mark of a Buddhist, in a way, is when we go for refuge to those three jewels. And what does that mean? Because it's a very strange word, isn't it? Refuge. Well, if not strange, at least it sort of suggests maybe running away, seeking a safe place where we can be at rest. And are we running away as Buddhists? Well, in some way, we're definitely not running away because we're becoming more aware. We're turning towards the whole of the whole of how the world really is, and that is certainly not turning away. It's not taking a refuge in that way from the world. But it is taking refuge, it is running away, if you like, from our negative states of mind, from what is holding us back from the freedom that enlightenment offers. So there's a promise of great freedom, and we can only attain that freedom by seeking refuge in what can really help us, what can really give us refuge. So why can't the world give us refuge? We try hard enough to make it give us refuge, don't we? Well, as you know, the world is unsatisfactory because we've got a human body. And it's primarily that. So what is it about having a human body? Well, we know the most obvious things. So that is birth, old age, sickness, and death. So why is birth suffering? Why is birth unsatisfactory? Well, I think it has two elements to it. Obviously, giving birth for the mother is very, very, very painful. And more than that, when a child is born, the parents suddenly realise the responsibility and the fear that that brings up. So wanting to protect this tiny being and knowing really that it will eventually be out of your hands. That child will go to school, it'll have its own personality, it will do things that you don't want it to do, you won't be able to protect it from making mistakes and so on. So the reality is quite painful at times. So birth, old age, sickness and death are much more obvious. Nobody wants to die unless they're in a very, very deeply unpleasant mental state. But we want to live, and there's a very strong impulse to live even when we're desperately depressed. So having a body is unsatisfactory, but it's also unsatisfactory because it separates us from other people. And because we are very protective of ourselves, it's quite difficult to feel connected to other people. We always want to put ourselves first, which is not in line with reality. Why should we be any more important than any other living being? So, obviously, everything is impermanent. So they're all very connected, these three lakshanas. They're not really separate. They're, in a way, they're aspects, all aspects of impermanence, of emptiness, ultimately. But more of that another time. So we seek refuge in order to free ourselves from the truth of these lakshanas, but not by discarding them, but by going into them a lot more deeply, penetrating to their very essence and seeing the freedoms that can come from really penetrating into those realities, that phenomenal existence is marked by those three characteristics. So how do we do that? Well, we do that actually from the very beginning that we start to practice. When we learn the mindfulness of breathing, for example, the fact that we breathe in and we breathe out and we have to let go of every breath and we're not in charge of our breath is very salutary. And if we can see the impermanence of every breath, if we can really see that, actually that's quite a big insight. And we know that with COVID and some of the COVID symptoms of not being able to breathe very easily, or even ultimately not at all, we can, well, if we've got any imagination at all, we can just see how desperately difficult it is when we have problems with our breathing. So, as we do the mindfulness of breathing, we could even bring to mind people that have died or struggled with their breathing. And here we are sitting quietly, maybe counting our breaths, maybe focusing on the whole breath in the whole body, and recognizing that it's a gift. It's a gift that we take for granted, that we don't notice most of the time, but how deeply we rely on every breath, and that those breaths actually are numbered. There's going to come a time when we will breathe in and we will breathe out, and there won't be another breath. So we don't reflect like that to make ourselves depressed about it. It actually can lead to a lot more appreciation. And actually, appreciation is a very important quality when we practice. We're learning to appreciate ourselves, the gifts we've been given as a human being, and appreciate other people that want to be happy just as we want to be happy, that have the same trials and tribulations of life that we do. And then not just other people, but appreciation for the world, for all the gifts of the world that we are fast destroying through greed, through hatred and delusion. Greed, hatred and delusion, which are at the centre of that wheel of life in Buddhism. So, yes, realising, penetrating into the truth, not turning away with fear, but actually looking deeply into the face of reality, there's a great relief. That's hard to, it's hard to talk about what a relief that is, because, when we face our deepest fears, when we really look at reality, when we're prepared to do that, it's like we don't fight it anymore. We can't fight it. So it's like knowing it and embracing it and getting close to it is a freedom. It's a sort of freedom. It's like letting out a long breath of relief. So I'm going to leave it there for today. More tomorrow. Bye-bye.